For the first time in the history of the franchise, we're able to wield the darkness. It's a huge impact on the sandbox. It's something we've been waiting on for years, so if you're a new or returning player, it's a perfect time to jump in. Today, we're going to explore how this new elemental power, Stasis, changes the landscape of Destiny 2. Go through the steps to unlock the new subclass, how Aspects and Fragments augment Stasis, and more. Each character has unique powers with Stasis, and the gameplay loop is to help control engagements, slow, freeze, and then shatter your enemies in both PvE and PvP. We're in the early stages of the expansion, and what's really nice is that there are clear paths by quest to get you set up. As you start the Beyond Light campaign, your quest is to unlock your Stasis powers by way of splinters of darkness that you attune at the Ziggurat. As you attune more and more, there are sections where you become Stasis empowered, and that gets a real glimpse of what's to come, and as you complete each step, the next part of the chapter is going to show you where you need to go. In the final stages, you fully embrace the darkness and you've unlocked the main Stasis base subclass for your character, but that's just the beginning. You're sent to Zavala, and this is where the main Beyond Light campaign concludes. But after you unlock the base Stasis subclass, you're asked to return to the Exostranger and beyond, and this is where you begin to start the quest line to unlock Aspects and Fragments. An important note, there's going to be various quest lines to keep up with. The Exostranger is first going to give you the Born in Darkness quest line. There's 5 steps. Once you complete that, you come back to the Exostranger, where you'll then be given the quest to unlock your first aspect. This quest is called the Aspect of Control. It states for this to be completed, you must first have completed the exotic quest line for the Stasis Grenade Launcher, Salvation's Grip. So as you're completing the Born in Darkness quest, there's a part 2, then there's a part 3. There's a couple of them going on at the same time. And the Born in Darkness quest is very important because you unlock separate grenades for the subclass. Part 2 gives you the Duskfield Grenade, part 3 is the Cold Snap Grenade. Back to the Aspect of Control quest, once you get the grenade launcher, there's a section to destroy 5 entropic shards, so let's go through real quick where they're located. The first one is in the Cadmus Ridge in the upper left part next to Bray Exoscience. It's sitting in the corner right here on the map, and again, you must shoot them with the grenade launcher and destroy them. The second one is located in the Asterian Abyss. It's right at the top of this middle structure here. You're going to need to climb to the top of the structure. It's going to be sitting at the top. The third one is right next to it in the Concealed Void Lost Sector. You're going to fight through the Lost Sector, and at the very end, there's a centerpiece that you can jump up, and it's going to be sitting at the very top. The last 2 are found at the top of the map by the Reborn Approach and the Technocrat's Iron. Now for the 4th shard, these last 2 can get pretty confusing, so as you take this lift, you're going to progress to the Reborn Approach. You're going to keep going through it until you find this room right here. And from here, you need to go to the right, and it's going to lead you up to another lift. Once you go up the lift, it's going to be located under the stairs. And there might be enemies that spawn at the top of the stairs. You're going to defeat them, and then take the portal in this room. Once you're on the other side, you're going to work through this section, and this path leads to the last one located in Technocrat's Iron. It's a very lengthy jog through this area, so keep following the railways all the way to the very end, where you come to this circular room, and the last one is located floating in the air. The Aspect of Control is going to go to the second step, and it's going to ask you to return to the Crux of Darkness in the Reborn Approach. So you're going to come all the way back to this room, and where you took a right last time, this time you're going to be taking a left. This leads you directly to the Crux, and once completed, it's just going to give you the Aspect. After you get your first Aspect, you're going to return to the Exostranger that now has fragment quests. Each week, the Stranger is going to provide 2 new quests to unlock fragments. These are pretty much mods to go with Stasis. And to get a fragment, you get the choice of completing either a Vanguard, Gambit, or Crucible quest. These are very specific, so choose what best suits you. I did both of mine in the Crucible. Once you complete one of them, you get to choose an unlock. You're going to get a total of 2 after you've done both quests. Now, from the 6 to choose from, first we have Whisper of Hedrons. Gain a bonus to weapon damage after freezing a target with Stasis. It has a -10 strength penalty. Whisper of Fissures increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Whisper of Refraction, defeating a slowed or frozen target grants you class ability energy. Whisper of Durance, slow from abilities last longer. For those abilities to linger, their duration is also going to be increased. This also grants a +10 strength bonus. Whisper of Bonds, defeating frozen targets with weapons grants super energy. There's big penalties of -10 to intellect and discipline. Whisper of Shards, shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade and recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration and benefit. I have 4 of these fragments and can give some insights to how they perform. The selection of these fragments is really important because the entire neutral game of Stasis involves slowing, freezing, and shattering. And the fragments come into play when we're talking about the grenades and abilities of the Hunter, Titan, and Warlock Stasis subclasses. On my Hunter, I chose Hedrons and Fissures. They're perfect synergy together. Hedrons grants 25% bonus damage after freezing a target with Stasis. That could be from a grenade, a melee, a super. It happens a good amount. You could be walking around with that bonus damage a lot. With Fissures, it creates noticeably larger explosions from shards and frozen enemies. That explosion goes out wider, it does more damage. For Whisper of Shards, each time you explode a crystal, it could be any crystal, meaning ones that didn't even come from you, you're going to get a cooldown buff to your grenade. After the first one that you explode, a timer goes on the screen that counts down from 5. This is going to be that improved ability regeneration. It maxes out at 10, and you can keep adding back onto it to keep that max of 10 up. It's a great fragment. For Whisper of Durance, it's best used with the slow grenade, and we're going to talk about the grenades in a moment, but it's going to allow the grenade to last a couple seconds longer and freeze faster. It's another great fragment. Out of these 4, I do like them all, but I find a lot of value in Hedron and Fissure paired, and also Shards for the grenade regen, because you're going to have that buff most of the time with a fire team. So at this point, you've unlocked 3 grenades, an aspect, and have 2 fragments. Stasis has the ability to slow, freeze, and shatter, so let's first talk about the 3 grenades, Glacier, Duskfield, and Cold Snap. All of these have utility, and in certain parts of a quest, it's going to want you to defeat enemies that are frozen, or while slowed, so put on the correct grenade to do those tasks, it'll make it a lot easier. The Glacier grenade, its main function is to create walls of stasis crystals to block damage and freeze targets that get caught while the wall is forming. Once they're up, they can be shattered by weapons or abilities. If an enemy gets caught in it, they're going to get frozen, and they can be shattered as well. You can use this grenade to wall off enemies. When you're one shot in PvE, you can kind of use it as a line of defense. You can also use it as a platformer to be thrown onto a wall to get up to a higher point. You can throw it at your feet and it's going to launch you in the air. There's a lot of things you can do with this grenade, and we're still in the early stages of learning about it. Next, we have Duskfield. Shatters on impact, leaving a field that slows targets and will freeze a target if they don't get out of the field. Excellent PvE and PvP grenade. It kind of pulls them in, slows them, and continually freezes them. It holds them in place so you and your fire team can deal big damage. It works great with that Whisper of Durance fragment. The third is the Cold Snap grenade. Freezes on impact, it sends out another seeker to find and freeze targets. It will tag one enemy, then crawl to the next, and then to the next, freezing them in place. In the Crucible, it's become one of the go-to stasis grenades because it leaves enemies helpless, they need to break out, and in PvE, it will lock down a small group. Its main job is freezing. And that's what we can take away. Of the 3, the Glacier is for the crystal formation, Duskfield is for slow, then eventual freezing, and then the Cold Snap is for freezing. Which one you choose is going to depend on what class that you're running, what fragments and aspects you have equipped, because each one of these grenades has a job. This works with our subclasses, so let's first talk about the Hunter Revenant. Its super ability is Silence and Squall. Throw one right after the other. Silence creates a flash freeze blast that freezes and damages targets. Squall creates a stasis storm that slows and damages targets caught inside. It really locks down an area, repeatedly freezing, and then you have the Stasis Storm from Squall that actually moves around kind of like a tornado. They're best used when thrown right on top of each other. The melee ability is Withering Blade. You're granted 2 of them. They're thrown fast, and once thrown, they're going to be bouncing off walls. They go target to target, tagging enemies. The first one will slow the enemy, but if you have the second charge and throw them back to back, the second one will freeze the enemy. The Revenant aspect is Shatter Dive. Activate while midair to quickly descend and shatter nearby targets on impact. This has no cooldown, so it can be used over and over. Any target that's frozen, or if you see crystals, you can shatter them with this. Meshes well with all of the grenades. Maybe you throw a Glacier grenade and an enemy is close to it, you can just shatter it and defeat them behind it. Or you can throw a Cold Snap, jump into the air and then Shatter Dive down while they're frozen. Revenant also has the regular Hunter class ability dodge and the same jumps. As far as some of our older neutral exotics, Foe Tracer, Wormhusk, Dragon Shadow, Six Coyote all work well, but my favorite sleeper is actually the Bombardiers. Since Stasis is everywhere, that bomb can shatter frozen enemies and crystals. It works very well. Titan is the behemoth and it has the Glacial Quake super. One part slams and sends out shockwaves that freezes targets and sends out crystals. The other part allows you to super strike for bonus damage. In the super, you can sprint through crystals or frozen targets and shatter them instantly. Very good crowd control super. The melee is Shiver Strike. You hold down your melee button and then release it to do a dash attack that knocks targets back, slowing and damaging them. So you can throw down a stasis grenade like Glacier or Snapshot to freeze and then smash into it with this. The aspect is Cryoclasm, one of the best neutral game aspects. Enables a longer, more powerful slide. Sliding into stasis crystals or frozen targets shatters them and nearby frozen targets. You can do it back to back, but it does have a cooldown after you do 2 in a row. Pairs extremely well with freezing grenades. You can slide right into those frozen enemies. It has the same jumps and has a barricade. For exotics, the Doom Archers work well. Armentarium is great, but my favorite is Heart of Immos Light. That's to empower abilities and get faster cooldowns, and we pair this with the grenade regeneration fragment for a very fast grenade cooldown. Warlock is Shadebinder. The super is Winter's Wrath. One part casts out a barrage of stasis shards that freezes targets. The other part sends out a blast that casts out a shockwave that shatters all frozen targets. It's another really good crowd control super. This and the Titan are mobile, while the Hunter just throws it into one area. The melee is Penumbral Blast. It sends out a blast of stasis forward to freeze your target. Very powerful melee. It works very well with the Hedron Fragment to do that bonus damage after freezing. It's especially strong in the Crucible. Even when a player is in super, you can just look at them and freeze them with this melee. The aspect for the Stasis Warlock is Ice Flare Bolts. Shattering a frozen target spawns Seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. It's very strong. Works very similar to the Cold Snap Grenade. For neutral game exotics, the Claws of Ahamkara for the Crucible for the double melee. And if you can do finishers on opponents in PvE, the Fellwinters is actually really good, because you can debuff the area and then use Stasis. And also remember, when using Stasis, all the past mod systems work great. Things like Charge with Light, and also the Warmind cells. It adds even more on top of what we're already doing with these subclasses. Thank you for watching. I am CoolGuy, and if you'd like to see more from me, you can find me over at CoolGuy Games on YouTube. Today's video was how to unlock, set up, and what to expect out of your new subclass. So far, even in these early stages, Stasis has turned the sandbox upside down in the Crucible and out in PvE. And remember, there are many aspects and fragments still left to be discovered that's going to allow us to further customize these new powers.